The first hero on trial today is Beast. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Beast has been straight up wildin' for the past little bit, so he should go straight to jail. Beast has taken a truly evil turn in recent stories. It started out as him as the head of Krakoa's intelligence service, X-Force, just wanting to protect Krakoa and mutants, and it snowballed into him doing that by any means necessary. Those any means necessaries involved him returning Wolverine to his primitive state so he could be Weapon X and go on missions without thinking twice. He also sabotaged the Terra Viridian strain of Telefloronics, and the Terra Verde country was overrun shortly after. He held someone hostage, he took someone out, he destroyed a UN submarine with people on it, mind you, and then he built a black hole gun that he wanted to use to suck Arakko into the cosmic vault for safekeeping, he claimed. I don't think it's hard to see why this version of Beast is dangerous and should receive a one-way ticket to a jail cell. However, I am also here to make a strong case for the jailing of one Hal Jordan Green Lantern Parallax. Controversial choice, I know, but I raise you everything that happened in that Parallax storyline. He broke some big rules and eliminated a bunch of people and generally terrorized the DC universe. He did it because Coast City was completely destroyed, so he was acting out of grief, or so we thought. However, it was later revealed that this wasn't actually Hal at all. It was him possessed by Parallax, and Parallax wasn't just the name Hal has started calling himself, it was actually a yellow entity living in the Yellow Lantern power battery that was the embodiment of fear. However, this wasn't revealed until after, so there was a period where Hal Jordan was just the worst and a wanted criminal. This always happens. A writer will make a hero commit atrocities to explore that side of the character, but then it's like, well, we can't have this fan favorite hero be a bad person. The only way to fix this is by saying it was mind control. Moving on to a character from the greatest superhero movie ever made, Titan from Megamind. For anyone who hasn't seen the greatest superhero movie ever made, Megamind is the villain and Metro Man is the hero. They have a classic hero-villain push and pull dynamic going. However, one day Megamind actually wins and Metro Man goes 6 feet under. Megamind is kind of left to treat the city however he wants and trashes it. But that gets boring really quick. He wants to fight a superhero again, so he decides to create one. He takes this guy named Hal Stewart, gives him powers, trains him to be the hero Titan. Hal turns out to be the worst candidate Megamind could have picked because the minute he gets his feelings hurt, he starts terrorizing the city until of course Megamind is forced to save the day. Titan eventually has the powers extracted from his body and he is arrested, so he actually might be in jail right now, which is what he deserves. Zatanna is the incredibly powerful mistress of magic, generally a hero, except for that era where she was just erasing memories and altering personalities like it was her birthright. That was not very nice of her and led to the character losing some of her fans. The first time she erased a mind and altered a personality, it was Dr. Light after he did a really bad thing, and the League members present all voted that the mind erasing should happen. When Batman interrupted the spell to stop them, he was also wiped. Wiping someone's mind when they're a villain is one thing, wiping the mind of a teammate and beloved hero is another thing entirely. Catwoman famously had an excellent villain to hero redemption, however, how much of that was real? Turns out Zatanna was mentally messing with Catwoman so she would turn out to be a hero. Good intentions, bad execution, because it led to Catwoman not being able to trust her own memories after Batman found out his mind was messed with too. He couldn't bring himself to trust Zatanna for a long time. Zatanna had vowed to never wipe minds or alter memories like that again. However, the only thing standing in her way is a little bit of guilt and shame, so not much. Maybe they should also add some bars. This next defendant might do well in jail because hopefully it will just give him the break he so desperately needs. I call to the stand Jason Todd, also known as Red Hood. Red Hood has been through it in a way no one has been through it before, but trauma does not excuse the fact that he has committed some actions that are worthy of jail time. Mr. Todd has actually already been arrested a few times and has gone to jail before, for a good reason. He frequently breaks the bat no elimination rule. However, I will accept the argument that the people he is taking out are probably causing more destruction and loss of life than Jason ever could. One thing I have to admit, if this sways the jury's decision, Jason was taken out by the Joker with with a crowbar, and when he turned into his like dark vigilante side, he adopted the crowbar as his weapon of choice, which I think is pretty heavy metal. Wolverine should be in prison, plain and simple. He has done some nasty things over the years and hurt a lot of people. There were also many a time he genuinely thought eliminating someone was the move and had to be stopped by his teammates. He's taken out his own family a few times and even a few teammates. I think there's actually a higher chance that Wolverine would put himself in prison for a break. Also, a bit of Wolverine, Hugh Jackman lore before we move on from this point. When Hugh Jackman was traveling here to Canada for the first X-Men film, the production didn't have his visa yet, and I guess they were just hoping he could get across the border. He was detained and almost went to jail. The only reason he didn't was because the officers happened to be major X-Men comic fans, and they believed him when he said he was going to play Wolverine in the upcoming live action. The story is quite funny. Please look it up when you have the time. The Superman from the 1930s deserves jail time because what was that man doing? Action Comics 8 Superman was being an actual menace to society. He completely destroyed an entire neighborhood on purpose without warning the people who live there. When the Joker tries to level a city, suddenly it's a problem and he's evil, but when Superman actually does it, it's totally fine. Make it make sense. Superman did it with good intentions. He was fighting crime in an underprivileged neighborhood and saw that the place was just too full of crime and needed some serious TLC or a hard reset. He recalled that the government was building better housing in an area that a cyclone went through and destroyed everything, so he figured he would destroy the whole neighborhood, and then that way the government would have to help. Does Superman give any warning to the residents? Absolutely not. He literally just starts picking up bricks and starts smashing. It takes time to build apartments and new houses. I truly do not understand what Superman was thinking here. 1939 Superman, I am awaiting your mugshot. In third is one of the toughest cases we will look at today, the Punisher. On one hand, this guy is a danger to society. His name is literally the Punisher, and he will just straight up put criminals 6 feet under. However, putting him in jail means he just has an endless supply of criminals to take out. Solitary confinement might just be the only option for this guy. The Punisher has been to jail before. He is very much an anti-hero. He's doing bad things for a good reason and is technically putting terrible people out of commission so they can never hurt another person again, but it begs the question, does the end ever justify the means? The Punisher does have a story called The Cell, in which he lets himself be arrested simply so he would have access to the mafia members that hurt his family. The guy is clearly unhinged and severely traumatized, so you do feel for him, but it's hard to excuse the brutality of some of his actions. Wanda Maximoff is doing a lot better now, but we cannot deny that there was a period of her life where the safest choice for everyone would have been putting her behind magical bars. If you look at the comics, she literally caused the destruction of an entire brand of human. I understand she was going through something, but that doesn't excuse the fact that she caused so much grief and death. And then if you look at the MCU, again, she was going through something, but the residents of Westview were also going through something. They were being controlled against their will, and then later Wanda decided to take out a bunch of superheroes in the most brutal way possible. Maybe she doesn't deserve like prison, but she does need to spend some time away, preferably with some mental health professionals. Though it would be hard to get him there and then keep him there, Deadpool should be in jail. The guy is beautifully unhinged and funny, yes, but he also has caused senseless destruction and death at his own hand. He literally took out a guy for saying the Star Wars prequels are better than the OG trilogy. He is an active danger to society. He will also intentionally put his own loved ones in harm's way if it will benefit him. Plus, Agent Coulson went 6 feet under because of him, and that's unforgivable. More forgivable now, considering how Coulson is messing with everything, but at the time, heartless. Even more heartless was that time he took out the whole Marvel universe, and a version of him took out beloved literary characters. Deadpool has proven time and time again that he is an incredibly dangerous individual with a fluctuating moral code. All in all, Deadpool has done enough to warrant some jail time, and whoever helped create that horrible version of him from X-Men Origins Wolverine can go there with him.
Number 10, X-Man. It's not a deadly superhero list without at least one Gray or Summers offspring making making the cut, and X-Man is both, genetically speaking at least. X-Man is Nate Gray, who hails from the Age of Apocalypse reality of Earth 295. He is known as X-Man, and is also sometimes referred to as Mutant Jesus. So I think you can imagine what we're working with here. Nate Gray was created by the Mr. Sinister of his reality using the genes of both Jean Grey and Scott Summers. He represents the greatest potential in terms of power for their offspring. But despite being created by Sinister using Grey and Summer genes, he was actually raised by AOA's Forge. Nate Gray is a reality warper, and a mighty one at that. Reality warpers, especially stable ones like Nate, would be extremely dangerous to have in the MCU because they would be limitless in terms of what they could do. Especially Nate Gray, he is very much limitless. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you love when we talk about comics, be sure to let us know you love us by subscribing, and that way you don't miss out on any of our awesome content. Yay! It's a win-win. Number 9. Amass. Amass is one of my favorite new mutants that I've met in the last little while. They appear in the current Marauders run that started this year in 2022 and is written by Steve Orlando. Amass was created by Orlando and Eleonora Carlini. This mutant is wild. We don't know that much about them yet, but what we do know is that they can basically combine mutant powers and mutants together, hence their name of Amass, because they amass things. They hail from a hidden ancient civilization of mutants known as the Threshold that existed eons ago, and which we are only now learning about in the comics, and this was actually said to be like the first ever mutants to have existed. As of Marauders issue number 9, we do not know this mutant's limitations yet when it comes to their powers, and so I could definitely see them being a character who could easily break the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if they are as powerful as I suspect they are, and I suspect they're probably pretty powerful. Number 8. XNilo. If we get XNilo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it will probably mean the coming of the Builders, which would be a whole world-destroying event. Worlds-destroying actually, since they basically obliterated multiple planets in order to reset the universe and start again because of what they had learned about the coming incursions. XNilo was known as one of the Gardeners. He was created by the Builders, as were all the Gardeners. Their goal was to perfect species on planets and create life, which sounds great until you realize the level of power needed to do such a thing. XNilo could both create matter and manipulate time, which is pretty crazy. Number 7. Ulyses. Ulyses is an inhuman superhero who created a lot of commotion as a result of his powers and, well, just existing. Ulyses was actually the central cause of Civil War II. His powers allowed him to get visions of possible futures, with it believed the more clear his visions became, the more likely these futures were to happen. As a result, the heroes became divided into two camps when it came to how to best utilize Ulyses and his immense power. One camp was headed by Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel, who hoped to utilize Ulyses' powers and visions to prevent tragic and devastating events before they happened, thereby saving countless lives, but of course at the cost of punishing people before they'd even really done anything wrong. Whereas Tony Stark's Iron Man headed the second camp of heroes, who weren't as willing to put all their faith in Ulyses' visions, especially at the cost of compromising the freedom of those who had possibly not even done anything wrong yet. If you'd like to avoid Civil War II from happening, a good way to do so would be by us never getting Ulyses in the MCU, which could create a lot of craziness. Number 6. Powerhouse. Powerhouse is the codename for Franklin Richards, the son of Susan Storm Richards, aka the Invisible Woman, and Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, both of the superhero team the Fantastic Four. When Franklin was just an infant, he caused a whole bunch of trouble due to being so powerful. In fact, he caused so much trouble that at one point Reed had to intervene by shutting down young Franklin's mind. At this point, Franklin was so powerful and his powers so out of control that he could have easily and accidentally destroyed the Earth. And this is when Franklin was just basically a baby still. Franklin might not have his powers currently in the comics, but if we were to see Powerhouse at peak strength and power level, he would definitely be far too dangerous a character for the MCU. Number 5. Hyperion. Hyperion would be a challenging one, I think, to have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, due to his similarity to one of the distinguished competition's main heroes, Superman. Hyperion is, in essence, like Marvel's response to a character like Superman, and he also recently appeared in the comics and was revealed to be problematic in his approach to heroics. That is to say, through getting to know this version of him and this version of his team, the Squadron Supreme of America, that recently appeared in the comics during the recent Heroes Reborn 2021 event, we learned that these heroes were a lot more shady than our standard Earth 616 heroes that we're used to seeing on teams like the Avengers. That being said, this was an alternate version of Milton, but still I think a lot of problems would exist with trying trying to incorporate this character into the MCU. Number 4, One Above All. The One Above All isn't ranking lower because I consider them to be less powerful than those ranked above them on this list. I just feel like they might not be as great of a threat to the MCU if they were to appear. But still, they probably never should, because they could kill the whole art of storytelling by becoming our Deus Ex Machina plot device. One Above All is basically the god of the Marvel Universe, and while it might be cool to see them appear as an allusion to the founders of Marvel Comics who made it what it is today, they definitely could easily derail plots or be used as a plot device to save the day, but at the expense of cheapening the stakes of a story. That being said, they did appear in Immortal Hulk, and I feel like that story actually utilized this character really well. So they could appear in a way that wouldn't cause harm to the universe or plots, but it would still be a hard line to walk, I think. Number 3, Sentry. The Sentry is a hero that might not only be too dangerous for the MCU, but also might be considered a little too dark as well when it comes to his origins. His danger levels though come from the fact that the Sentry not only has the power of like a ton of suns within him, but also the fact that within the Sentry lives the Void, the hero's alter ego who we initially thought was created by a split in his personality. But we would later learn in a retcon was an idea implanted in Sentry's mind thanks to the manipulations of villain Mastermind. While Sentry might be the strongest hero this Earth has ever seen, the Void is definitely one of the most devastating villains as well, and they're usually a package deal. Not always, but usually. It's kind of what makes the Sentry interesting, so I think you gotta at least have the Void there to begin with. Number 2, Hope Summers. Hope has to be one of the most destructive superheroes that we could see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. MCU mutants are coming. Eventually. Kamala Khan is already implied to be one of them as per the origin story her creators always wanted for her in the comics, but got denied at the time of her creation due to the push of the Inhumans in comics, as you know, the rights to the X-Men and the mutants were all wonky due to Fox's involvement. But now the mutants are back with Marvel thanks to their partnership with Disney, who acquired Fox, and all is well. But not if we get mutants who then get erased from existence by House of M. Hope was originally known as the Mutant Messiah. She was the first mutant baby to have been born since House of M, and her powers put her on another level when it comes to heroics. She can take on the power of any other mutant in her vicinity, and get those powers at peak level and skill set. Add in the fact that Hope's birth also caused an all-out war between the mutants during Messiah Complex, and yeah, having Hope in the MCU would both be challenging and be probably pretty dangerous. Number 1, Squirrel Girl. Despite no longer being fully considered unbeatable thanks to a fight in the Fantastic Four where it's implied that Squirrel Girl was beaten off panel, Squirrel Girl still has beaten a lot of big names when it comes to villains in Marvel Comics, and has also helped to reform some major ones as well. In fact, this is kind of Dorian's like whole secret to success when it comes to beating her foes. She usually does so by befriending them and encouraging them to do and be better, which usually, you know, just defeats them by making them good people. She's inspirational, and hey, it's contagious. And while she has lost once, I think her track record of beating almost all villains she runs into makes her simply too dangerous for the MCU. I mean, almost no one would be able to stand against her. Doesn't matter who shows up, Thanos, Kang, she'd be like, look, why don't we just have a conversation, and then it would all be resolved. Like Black Panther in What If, when he was Star-Lord and he was like, I just had a conversation with Thanos and then we fixed it. Number 10, Fool Killer. Gregory Salinger wasn't the first to hold the title. In fact, he was influenced to take up the mantle after serving time in prison and hearing stories of the original Fool Killer from his cellmate. He was later given the costume and from there adopted the mantle, finding inspiration in the story of the criminal, where the original Fool Killer was a murderer who was obsessed with religion, punishing and killing those he believed behaved sinfully. Gregory had a different outlook when it came to what made one a fool. He believed that those who were mediocre or materialistic deserved to be labeled fool and killed. Well, sometimes this put him in conflict with heroes, other times it actually put him in conflict with villains. At one point, he even almost killed himself, when after taking on Spider-Man, he heard someone remark that anyone who tried to take on the hero was a fool. Gotta kill himself. But he didn't, it's all good. Number 9, Massacre. Marcus Lyman turned villain after an attack on him and his wife left her dead and him with shrapnel lodged in his brain. The shrapnel altered his brain, making him unable to connect with others, and in effect, turning him into a sociopath. Marcus became Massacre and started running around shooting and killing people. He even managed to shoot Spider-Man, but Peter was still able to take him down despite being depowered at the time. Massacre was admitted to Ravencroft Institute. He was committed in the comics in 2011, but managed to escape in 2013. However, he then came up against Superior Spider-Man, which meant the ultimate end for Massacre, as he was shot and killed himself, until of course he was later resurrected. Final ends don't really have much weight after all in the comics. Number 8. Chameleon. A villain we have yet to see in the MCU, but who we were teased getting when a Dmitri showed up in Spider-Man Homecoming. However, this Dmitri Smirdyakov seemed to be working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and has so far appeared fairly legit and not an undercover version of the comic book villain Chameleon, sadly. But time will tell if this changes. Chameleon is one of the oldest Spider-Man villains around, appearing in the very first issue of Amazing Spider-Man out of the 1960s, where he besmirched Spider-Man's hero identity by performing crimes while under his guise. At one point, Spider-Man was made more aggressive after learning that his parents were actually robots in disguise. Yes, that really happened. And as such, when he ends up catching Chameleon, this event ends up bringing up repressed childhood trauma for Dmitri, causing him to question his own identity and driving him insane. He was later taken to Ravencroft, but ended up escaping after adopting the identity of staff member Dr. Ashley Kafka. Number 7. Shriek. Shriek has been known by a few aliases in the comics, though it has been clarified that she was born Frances Barrison. Her life of crime started as a drug dealer, and it was during her time in that profession that she suffered a gunshot to the head, which helped cause her to become psychotic. Carnage helped Shriek to escape, and she joined him on his rampage, and the two ended up becoming romantically involved. You know you're psychotic if you're interested in dating Cletus Cassidy. She's been in and out of Ravencroft a few times and was actually temporarily cured of her homicidal nature during her time at the Institute, though she later reverted back to it after being used by the Institute as a power source for the Carnage symbiote. Shriek is known for her ability to bring out dark thoughts and feelings in others, and for her sonic beam, which allows her to create blasts using sound waves. Number 6. Morpheus. Morpheus was a regular man named Robert Markham, suffering from insomnia, who sought treatment for his condition from Marlene's brother, Peter Jr. Alruane, who was a doctor. When using experimental treatment to cure the issue, however, something went wrong. The normal man was transformed, finding that his insomnia had worsened. He also now had the ability to access and alter people's dreams, kind of like Freddy Krueger. He used this power to take control of Marlene's brother, but eventually was defeated by Moon Knight. Number 5. Mysterio. Quentin Beck is known as a criminal mastermind and former special effects specialist, who used his expertise to pull off heists and seek revenge on supers who stand in his way. During his time at Ravencroft, he ended up discovering that his obsession with special effects had made him ill, after being exposed to chemicals used within his trade. He was told he had developed an inoperable brain tumor and lung cancer, and that he only had a year to live. Ravencroft released Quentin, believing he no longer posed as a threat to anyone. And what did Quentin do? Immediately set to work on one last villainous plot, with Daredevil as his target. I'm not sure what Ravencroft's success rates are at this point, but I imagine they would rival Arkham's in how bad they are at successfully containing and curing villains. Not very good at it. Number 4. Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock, or Otto Octavius as he was known, was once a very brilliant, insane scientist, though not without his own issues. His mother always fussed over him, while his father was physically abusive to him. When he was young, he fell in love, but his mother refused to give the couple her blessing, believing the fellow scientist he had fallen for was simply not good enough for him. This incident would lead to an argument that would result in his mother becoming estranged from him. The loss of his mother and his love, who had died, I know, very dramatic, left him distracted in his work, leading to the accident that would change his life forever, and cause him to be brain damaged, but able to control his mechanical tentacles. The damage to his brain turned him criminally insane. Number 3. Bushman. Bushman is one of the main villains for Moon Knight, a mercenary who worked alongside Mark Spector, but left him for dead after Spector stood up to defend archaeologist Peter Alruane's daughter, Marlene. From then on, the two became sworn enemies. Moon Knight once successfully sliced off Raoul Bushman's face and ended up killing him, but he was later resurrected. After his resurrection, he found himself once more in a fight with Moon Knight, who was about to once again cut off Bushman's face, but Bushman pleaded for mercy and was granted it by Spector. After his defeat, he ended up at the Ravencroft Institute. Number 2. Carnage. Cletus Cassidy was not always known as Carnage. There was a time when Cletus lost the symbiote. He was so distraught that he tried to convince others it was still within him, putting himself in harm's way and taking on the damages, though, to prove that the symbiote was still there protecting him, keeping him alive. This tactic resulted in Cletus suffering severe burns all over his body, though the symbiote would later return to him and fix his wounds. He's definitely one of the most criminally insane and dangerous within the Institute. A deranged serial killer, his first kill was his grandmother at a young age. The first time he was a patient there, he was actually actually just a baby, as Cletus was in fact born within the walls of Ravencroft, foreshadowing his destiny perhaps? Number 1. Green Goblin. While Norman Osborn may not seem the most dangerous upon first look, he is definitely the most dangerous overall in terms of a long-term nemesis. Osborn has been the criminal mastermind behind some of the worst events in Spider-Man's life, causing him great pain. In fact, I think he enjoys inflicting pain upon Peter more than he would enjoy even killing him or just straight up defeating him. Torturing seems to be a hobby of Norman's. He was admitted to Ravencroft after he bonded with the Carnage symbiote and was defeated. Spider-Man managed to separate the symbiote from him, causing Norman to suffer a psychotic break, wherein he actually believed that he was Cletus Cassidy. When he is visited by Spider-Man, he also confesses that he believes that it is not himself but Spider-Man who is actually Norman Osborn. Moral of the story here seems to be that insanity can be contagious when it comes to the Carnage symbiote. Obviously it's got some of Cletus's insanity just built into it. Number 10. Cable. Cable is not only dangerous to others he comes up against as a hero, but he's even dangerous to himself. Cable is a badass from the future who is taken there in his youth to protect him and ensure his survival. He has since made his way all across and through time, and has even returned to the present from the future, which is his past. Yeah, it's a lot of time travel stuff. It can get a little confusing. When Cable dies, it isn't even because anyone else took him out either, and he even saw it coming, because it turns out that his younger self was the one responsible, a version of the character we often refer to as young Cable or Kid Cable. So yeah, Cable is deadly in the sense that he'll do whatever he needs to, even if it means ending his own time loop by killing his older self. Does that make sense? I hope what I said just made sense. I think it made sense. Number 9. Old Woman Laura. X-23's future self ends up in a much nicer alternate future reality than her genetic father Wolverine. Old Man Logan's reality? Wasteland, lots of death and people who have gone insane. Cannibalism. Old Woman Laura's reality? A sort of futuristic paradise where Kamala Khan ends up as president. But even still, her future isn't perfect, because Laura is dying. Her genes have become unstable in her old age due to a flaw in the cloning process that made her not so good. The other thing that's not so good? Doom is holding the people of Latveria hostage, and it's up to Laura to put a stop to it. This version of Laura from the future is just as deadly as her main continuity counterpart, but with added years of experience, and is willing to do whatever it takes to defeat Doom, even if it means killing him and possibly sacrificing herself to do it. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love time traveling as much as I love time traveling, click that like. Every time you click that like, there's a chance you could go back in time. That's not true, but wouldn't it be cool if when you clicked like on videos, you could time travel? That would be pretty cool. Number 8. Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan stays a hero in the future, but only because he doesn't have much other choice, really. Really, all Logan wants to do is live his life without having to think too much of all the deaths of his friends that he's responsible for. Logan, in the alternate future of Earth 807128, ends up killing all of his fellow X-Men after being tricked into thinking they were all villains by Mysterio. Not only was he capable of causing all of that death, but further into the future, he goes up against a powerful and horrific villain in his time and reality, facing the head of the Hulk gang and also sort of his landlord, Pappy Banner, aka Old Man Hulk. Something went wrong with Bruce Banner as time went on in this reality, and he basically lost his mind, likely as a result of that gamma radiation affecting him well into his elder years, and not in a good way. Logan ends up being swallowed whole by Hulk, but defeats him in the end by cutting his way out of Old Man Hulk's gut. It's pretty gross. Number 7. Green Lantern. Jessica Cruz from our time might not be quite so dangerous yet, but when we glimpsed into her possible future in the Future State line from DC, we learned that there is a future version of her who becomes a Yellow Lantern, joining the Sinestro Corps. Not all Yellow Lanterns are bad, but because they are generally about instilling fear in others, they more often than not tend to end up becoming deadly supervillains. And that's usually who they are. Jessica Cruz found herself stranded on a Green Lantern base and outpost without her powers, and when Sinestro Corps members showed up to investigate, found herself offered a Yellow Lantern ring after her fight against them had resulted in her overcoming her own fears and instilling fear into the hearts of her enemies. Which I'm not gonna lie, I really like that twist in the future for Jessica. I think Jessica as a Yellow Lantern is really cool. Number 6. The Fall. Fallen One. The Fallen One is a version of Norrin Radd who comes from a very dark future where Thanos wins. He first appeared in issue 15 of Thanos from 2016 in the Thanos Wins storyline. While he is pretty swiftly defeated, it is only because those he goes up against are even more deadly than him. And even then, it takes a few issues before the fight against him is actually concluded. So it's not like you're in, you're out. It's not a one and done. It's a few issues. Norrin Radd, aka the Silver Surfer, became the Fallen One after he was imbued with black matter and also boasts, of course, of the power cosmic, in addition to wielding Thor's hammer Mjolnir. He also comes leading the charge of the Annihilation Wave, so he's got a lot going on. He got all this power in the hopes of standing a chance in the final showdown with Thanos, as one of the last beings left alive in the universe, one of the final people to actually fight him. Sadly, he does fail, but he still manages to look deadly and badass while doing so. So you gotta give him some points for that. Number 5, Superman. John Kent in Future State takes up the mantle of Superman after his father. This also happens after his father left Earth, and many of those who he helped believe that he actually has gone missing, possibly to never return. That's what people think is going on with OG Superman. Well, we skip through the future timeline and Future State with this version of John from this future being shown as a very heroic character. We also see some things that he does in this futuristic timeline that seem, well, not so heroic. Like when he bottled the city of Metropolis. John believed he had no other choice and that this was kind of the most peaceful solution to fixing the problems that the city faced at the time. However, he later is forced to confront the fact that he took away the freedom of the people of Metropolis when he made this choice for them. Future State John Kent is dangerous because he is willing to do whatever it takes to protect the city of Metropolis, which sometimes means taking actions that other heroes like Supergirl find questionable. Number 4, King Thor. King Thor might be one of the most powerful future heroes on this list, but he also is only so deadly and dangerous because he's living in a time where he has to be. King Thor is the alternate future version of Thor from the alternate Earth of 14412. Here, Thor goes on to become the Allfather and lives beyond the point where Midgard becomes a lifeless husk as a result of Thor's once more again villainous brother Loki, the god of mischief. At one point while battling Doom in the future, King Thor is granted the Phoenix Force by Logan, who is currently bonded to it at that time, and is able to use that power to defeat Doom. Considering that King Thor will do whatever it takes to defeat those who would oppose him, and considering how much power he wields, even when he doesn't have the Phoenix Force, I'd say he's a pretty dangerous future hero. I wouldn't want to go up against him. Number 3, Cosmic Ghost Rider. I would say Cosmic Ghost Rider is one of the most dangerous heroes on this list because he's not entirely mentally stable, which also makes him a lot more unpredictable. Cosmic Ghost Rider was originally Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. When Thanos attacked Earth, Frank made a deal with Mephisto, following his death, to become a spirit of vengeance, a Ghost Rider, so that he could return to Earth and get revenge on Thanos for all of the people on Earth that he had killed. However, by the time Frank returned to Earth, there was basically nothing left to avenge, and Thanos had already left, leaving the planet empty and desolate. Frank wandered as a Ghost Rider for years, and in his solitude, lost his mind. He would go on to become a Herald of Galactus in an attempt to defeat Thanos, but would eventually submit to being Thanos' Herald after realizing that fighting against him was pretty pointless. Number 2, Booster Gold. Booster Gold is demonstrably dangerous as a hero from the future, mainly because he has no idea what he's doing. He has tons of knowledge of what is meant to happen in the main continuity and present day that he traveled to from the future, but he has no idea of how messing with the past timeline or anything like that could affect the present day or its future. We see how dangerous he can be when he attempts to even do good, like saving Bruce's parents in the past so that they can be there for his wedding. Unfortunately, in doing so, completely messes with the timeline to the point that Booster is actually forced to travel back in time and make sure that Bruce's parents are killed, and that poor young Bruce is basically there to witness their deaths. It's also kind of implied that Booster being there and fixing all of that is actually what caused their deaths. It's pretty crazy, it's pretty trippy. Booster might have some valuable knowledge as someone from the future, but he doesn't have the finesse needed to know when the timeline can be tweaked and when it should be left alone to avoid catastrophes from manifesting in the future. Basically, do not let Booster time travel and mess with the timeline. It is not a good idea. Number 1, Iron Lad. Iron Lad is not specifically from the future, but he does go on to become a very dangerous villain who returns from the future. Iron Lad, who was a member of the Young Avengers, it turns out is actually destined to become Kang the Conqueror, who has many different villainous personas throughout the years. I won't go into them right now, but you know some of them. And he's also known for his time travel antics. He often travels back through to the past from the future to enact all kinds of elaborate plots. As a Mortis, he had a hand in creating White Vision. Kang also at one point turns Iron Man evil, brainwashing him into becoming his loyal servant and villainous right-hand man. He's basically behind a lot of evil things that you're like, what is even happening here? And then it'll be like, haha, it was Kang the whole time. Possibly what we'll see in the MCU. I'm placing my bets. Because sadly, I don't think I'm getting Norman Osborn in this phase. Number 10, Scarecrow. While Scarecrow might not have any powers to speak of, his brilliant mind has granted him lots of tricks and abilities. One of the most well-known tactics of his is to use his fear toxin, which causes those exposed to have vivid hallucinations of their greatest fears. He also has a terrifying appearance and possesses some immunity to various toxins and poisons due to his exposure to chemicals. In the past, he has managed to use his fear toxin to attempt to poison all of Gotham, and has more recently been busy terrorizing those outside of Gotham in Bloodhaven, including Dick Grayson, who he actually came quite close to defeating during his attempt to take over the city of Bloodhaven. Number 9, Black Mask. While Black Mask might not be as popular as some of the others on the list, in some ways I would argue that he is more dangerous, especially when you are dealing with him one-on-one. Black Mask is a twisted sociopath who often tortures his foes who he manages to capture. He's not only played a supervillain to Bruce Wayne's Batman, but he's even become a great supervillain to Batman's sometimes ally, Catwoman. In one story, he's responsible for torturing Selina Kyle's sister Maggie, killing her husband, and forcing her to commit cannibalism by eating him, which ultimately drives Maggie insane. The feud between Black Mask and Catwoman became so intense that she eventually snapped, and even in one story was responsible for killing him. Number 8, Harley Quinn. While Harley Quinn in the comic book world is ever more closer to the title of anti-hero in her new animated series, she set out to prove herself as the baddest bad guy ever, locking her sights on becoming an established member of the Legion of Doom. She wants to prove to not just herself that she can be just as evil and dangerous as the next villain, but also to her ex, the Joker. Harley wants the world to see her for who she is, bad to the core, and in the series she even manages to take on and win against the Joker, leaving Gotham on fire. But actually, with Batman MIA and possibly even presumed dead. Number 7, Bullseye. One of the best shots when it comes to the supervillain crowd. He can fire any weapon and throw anything, even teeth, and not miss. I even think he may have better aim than Hawkeye himself. I know, this is a controversial opinion, but the two are at least on the same level for sure. Bullseye is also completely criminally insane. He kills without remorse and sometimes without even any interest in doing so. He's also the man responsible for killing 2 of Daredevil's loves of his life and has made Daredevil's life a living hell in more ways than just that. In the Netflix series, Kingpin hires this assassin to torment Daredevil just like in the comics. And in the show, Bullseye decides to go on a killing spree dressed as Daredevil to accomplish said task. He even managed to finally kill Matt Murdock during a final showdown with Daredevil in the miniseries End of Days. Number 6, Kingpin. When it comes to the life of Matt Murdock and sometimes the life of other superheroes who get in his way, you can't go bigger than Kingpin. Wilson Fisk is so brilliant, so imposing, and so terrifying that he rules with an iron fist. Not the iron fist, just an iron fist. You know what I mean. And very few dare to cross him. He knew who Daredevil was for the longest time, but chose to keep his identity under wraps. That's how confident Fisk was that he didn't need to leak it in order to ruin Matt's life. In fact, Kingpin managed to figure out a lot of super secret identities, proving how well connected and sharp he is. He also prompted Peter into beating him within an inch of his life when it was revealed that he was the one responsible for an assassination attempt that landed Aunt May in the ICU. Savage.
He paid for that one, though. He definitely paid for that one. Number 5, Razal Ghoul, or Razal Ghoul, depending on how you want to say it. Like Batman, Razal Ghoul is very much a self-made man. The biggest difference between the two is that Batman attempts to stand for justice, while Razal Ghoul is a powerful criminal mastermind. In fact, he is one of the few who can rival Batman when it comes to all the skills and training that he has had, as well as his amassed knowledge over the years. Of course, Raz has a lot more time to work on himself and become so skilled, and this is due to his use of the Lazarus Pits, which has helped him to stay eternally young, heal, and basically be considered immortal through their use. Of course, tons of people, superheroes and villains alike, have used the Lazarus Pits to come back to life or heal themselves throughout comic book history. And while some might think this means he has a superpower, he just has access to the Lazarus Pits. It's not his power. He doesn't own it. I mean, he uses it the most, but other people come through. Number 4, the Red Skull. A villain so evil, even the Joker didn't want to work alongside him during a crossover with Captain America and his sidekick Bucky, and Batman and his sidekick Robin. Johann Smith's appearance might make you think that he has powers, but although he's stolen some powers a few times, for the most part, the most dangerous thing about him is just how evil he really is. His love of violence and murder began a long time ago, back when he was just a young boy in love. Johann was actually born into an abusive household and immediately was almost killed by his father, who attempted to drown him when he was just a newborn. Later in life, Schmidt became a runaway orphan and thief, who was later taken in by a Jewish shop owner. He and his daughter were the first people to really show Johann kindness. In defending them, he committed his first murder, and frustrated when the daughter did not seem to appreciate his help, he repaid their kindness by assaulting her and leaving both her and her father for dead. This was the moment that Johann first realized how very much murdering and causing pain to others brought him joy. And he also realized how much he cared about power. Number 3, Ozymandas. Ozymandas is so skilled that he even makes you think he has superpowers. He's so brilliant, he figured out how to move quickly enough to catch and stop a bullet. Something that has only really been posed as possible in magic shows that pull off the trick using the typical tactics of distraction and sleight of hand, simply making it look like they caught a bullet, while likely they just had a bullet on them the whole time, found a way to make you think that they caught it. But Adrian Veidt is so well studied, he's obviously discovered a way to pull off this trick in real life with real stakes. His superior intellect is what he relies on for everything, and in a sense, the way he manipulates people into doing what he wants almost appears just like a magic trick. He's able to think and plan so far ahead, distract those he targets so well that they never even think to suspect him. And in truth, unless he reveals his plot to you, you'll probably never even know that he was involved in what happened at all. Number 2, Lex Luthor. In his efforts to destroy Superman, Lex has gone to great lengths. He's even successfully campaigned and been elected as President of the United States. Not only that, but his ire for Supes is so strong that it has even extended to the Justice League, as Lex was also the man who put together the Injustice League Unlimited crew, whose main aim was revealed to be world domination through coming together. Unfortunately, the villains weren't as good at working together as their heroic counterparts, and eventually they were defeated. But even then, Lex claimed that he was so brilliant that even the destruction of the Injustice League Unlimited and his capture were all part of his master plan, apparently. Number 1, Joker. Despite not having any powers, Joker remains one of the most iconic and dangerous villains of all time. While not all of his ideas have been winners, all of them have definitely been pretty creative. And while some of the more outlandish plots have flopped, Joker is still known for some of the most dastardly plots in all of comics. In the non-canon story Killing Joke, he was responsible for paralyzing Barbara Gordon in an attempt just to drive her father, Commissioner Gordon, insane. He is basically single-handedly responsible for Superman snapping and losing it in the Injustice universe. He killed Gordon's wife point blank after making her drop her weapon by tossing a baby at her. When Joker was Emperor Joker, he was responsible for devouring and thereby destroying the entire population of China. He killed and tortured various Robins, and some still believe he may have had involvement in the death of Bruce's parents. Joker is one of the most creative and disturbing villains around. He's sadistic, chaotic, and unpredictable, making him an insanely dangerous man to deal with, even when you are on his side. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. I just love how many powerful supervillains there are out there who rely on just their wits alone and sometimes additional gadget accessories to get things done. For my bonus content, I'd like to share with you an honorable mention that I have. Poison Ivy may be well known for her plant control powers, it's true, and the abilities to manipulate and control the minds of her victims. But just a friendly reminder that Pamela Isley hasn't always been known as deadly just because of her powers. Behind her, like many other good supervillains, there's a brilliant mind. In fact, in the Batman animated series, when we are first introduced to Pamela, it is her knowledge as a botanist and her insane passion for the environment that makes her so deadly. And this is all just in our first introduction to her in the show.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Abracadabra. AKA Citizen Abra, he began his magical days as a Flash villain, first appearing in comics in The Flash issue 128. He's from the future, of course, like most of these guys are, but it's a future where, sadly, magic shows aren't a thing anymore. Yeah, sorry, David Blaine. Gotta get a new job. He's from the 64th century, and technology has become so advanced that pulling a rabbit out of a hat just simply won't cut it anymore. I heard about the time machine powered by M-metal. He just had to get his glittery magician hands on it. It was only capable of one trip, so Abra snuck into the laboratory and shot back in time to the 20th century, where magicians were still celebrities, like Chris Angel or David Blaine or David Copperfield or, you know, the other ones. He would use technology from his timeline well beyond what we're capable of and then blow our minds in these magic shows. The shows were going well at first until people got bored, then they were actually more interested in this new statue being built in town, so he figured the next logical way of getting attention was to start stealing things, starting with this fancy new statue. He kept stealing, and he kept stealing after that, and he kept using his future tech to evade capture, so when it comes to magicians, Abracadabra is very committed to the craft, in the future or the past. Number 9, Gore, the God Butcher. The God Butcher will be played by Christian Bale in the upcoming Thor Love and Thunder sequel, and yes, he is a time-traveling menace as well. He made his first appearance in Thor God of Thunder issue 2. He was born on a planet with no name, which is always a great sign. Gore lost his parents when he was very young, and he was told to pray to these gods, because they would always make things better, these glorious gods. And then after getting a wife and son, death kept looming over, and he lost both of them as well. Really tragic stuff. So now he's a little bit more than upset at these gods. He wants them to answer or to pay, one of the two. With the all-black Necrosword powers, he heads out for revenge on these gods, but in the past. He would use the Pool of Forever to travel back in time and make these attacks happen. He would use the Pool of Forever to go back in time and then attack all these gods when they were babies, right? So it took different versions of Thor from different timelines just to put a stop to Gore the God Butcher. So with this new Thor movie coming out, including Natalie Portman, Mjolnir, Lady Sif, I feel like it's going to be a cosmic headache and do some time stuff in there as well. But in Taika, we trust. It's kind of like when Rhodey suggested getting rid of Thanos when he was younger by, you know, Gore the God Butcher is basically that mentality, but 10 times worse. And with powers. Number 8, Timothy Drake. The Red Robin, aka Tim Drake, first entered comics in Batman 436. He was a young boy who saw the Flying Graysons show live in person. He even received kind words from Dick Grayson, and Dick dedicated that act to Tim that night. How lovely. Now, of course, this was moments before Dick's parents, John and Mary, tragically died during this act. A night Tim would never forget, especially when he witnessed the Caped Crusader himself, Batman, consoling Dick Grayson afterwards. So years later, when Tim was 9, it was Batman and Robin taking down the Penguin, and Robin did this quadruple somersault, the only flip that could be performed by a Grayson, and then he connected the dots. He's like, oh, so you're him and you're him. Got it. Tim followed them around for a while, and then after Jason's death, Tim suited up himself as the third Robin. But in the Titans Tomorrow storyline, we see the Teen Titans travel to the 31st century to assist the Legion of Superheroes, and when they return, they accidentally end up 10 years in their future. So they meet older, darker future versions of themselves, including Timothy Drake, now going by Savior. This version of Tim is ruthless. He even carries around with him Joe Chill's gun to help get the job done. So when the team gets back to their real timeline, they swear to never become their dark counterparts, and they split up. But, like I said earlier, this split up is actually what ends up causing the dark versions of themselves to happen in the first place. Time! You can't mess with time. That's it. The Titans Tomorrow storyline is definitely one you need to check out. We love dark, evil versions of our heroes. We can't get enough of them. Number 7, Ultron. The Avengers Age of Ultron storyline is a lot better than the MCU's version of that. The comic Age of Ultron has better time travel stuff than the movie Endgame does, honestly. I mean, Wolverine goes back in time, he tries to kill Hank Pym so that Ultron's never created, but while he's there, he has to talk to other Avengers who are also back in time on a different mission. It's wild. It's a great time. It starts off with New York City in ruins. Spider-Man is zipping around the city. All these heroes are missing or they're dead, and the only way for the city to survive this apocalypse is by offering superheroes to Ultron, who just rules everything. So She-Hulk and Luke Cage are amongst these survivors, and they have the plans basically to just go in willingly, and then once they're inside, they're gonna break everything apart because they're super strong. But then when they get there, it's not even Ultron that's running the show, it's actually Vision. The Vision is being used as a conduit from future Ultron, so he's safe, you can't just go and punch him and then everything's fine. He's in the future, he's safe, he knows what's gonna happen. We're kind of screwed. We can't punch our way out of this. We have Ultron already on top. Ultron is actually barely in this story, funny enough, but the stakes start off raised, so you feel anxious the entire time reading it. It's a great time travel story. Definitely check it out. Number 6, Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne made his debut in Flash issue 139, titled The Black Flash. He was the OG Reverse Flash. He was born in 2451 when his parents genetically engineered him, because that's the thing you do in the future, and you can engineer your kids to look and be funny and cute, I guess. Okay, cool. But he lacked the social skills in this time to make his parents truly proud, so they decided, you know what, another son may be the key. A new best friend, great idea, you know, they can pair up and talk and be friends and stuff. Okay, cool. I grew up with siblings, I get it. That second son's name was Robert. He spent so much time trying to keep an eye on Robert and to make his parents proud and to like babysit him, that down the road his application to study the Speed Force at the Flash Museum was rejected. He was too busy, couldn't even study. So he studied it illegally. But he was caught by his brother, who is now an officer in the Science Police. This guy is interesting and a little confusing. So a future version of Eobard traveled through time and prevented his brother from being born, and then he was able to study and was in turn this time around admitted to the Flash Museum. Great. But then when Professor Drake was on the verge of proving the existence of the Speed Force, Eobard has trained his whole life for this, so he wanted to collab, but Drake said no. He wanted to do it solo. So he traveled back in time again and eliminated Professor Drake from the equation. So next time around, there's no Drake, there's no problem. Now Eobard is the professor at the Flash Museum and was nicknamed Professor Zoom. Reverse Flash is responsible for the death of Barry Allen's mother and his wife Iris West. He just rips timelines and the Flash's life to pieces. That's his whole thing. Number 5, Maestro. In Avengers Endgame, we cut to 5 years in the future. Hulk is now smart, he's taking selfies, he's dabbing, he's hanging out with the team, but he's embarrassed by his past smashy version of himself from 2012's Avengers. We love growth, we love seeing a character change, but what if the Hulk had lived even longer on this planet? Well, that's where we get into the Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect storyline. As the title suggests, the future is not so bright here. There are no flying cars, there's actually nothing really there. It's not a paradise at all. When we see the future Earth 9200, we're seeing a Hulk 100 years in the future as well. We find him after a nuclear war put the planet close to extinction. So the Hulk, or rather the Maestro, was older, stronger, and scarier looking, all because he'd been absorbing all this nuclear radiation from the Earth. He became even more unstoppable and, of course, just super jaded, just super evil. He had to face a future version of Rick Jones at one point, and then he ended up losing a battle to said Smart Hulk as well. I wouldn't want to face any version of the Hulk at any time. I don't want to fight Smart Hulk, War Hulk, Horseman Hulk, or even Bruce Banner. I don't want to fight the scientist Bruce Banner. Number 4, Time Trapper. First appearing in Adventure Comics 317, Time Trapper was introduced to readers as a warlord in the far future who prevents the Legion of Superheroes from traveling into their future with this iron curtain of time. The Time Trapper's main goal basically was to steal this weapon that could absorb every energy in the universe, just this Dyson vacuum full of energy called the Concentrator. Now the team caught wind of this Time Trapper when they could no longer jump more than 30 days in the future. They're like, okay, something's up, there's some higher powers preventing us from being badass. He resides comfortably at the end of time, accompanied by his servants, the Glorith of Baldur. Time Trapper can age anybody he wants, either a couple years or straight to the ashes and bones part. In Action Comics 385, Time Trapper created a temporal force barrier in order to seal a time-traveling Superman away from the 20th century. He's that powerful. Number 3, Bishop. Lucas Bishop is a time traveler from a dystopian future, and his goal is to travel back in time to stop this unknown factor amongst the X-Men. Okay, so he comes from this dark future and he goes back in time to change it because something bad happens. There's some bad mutant, okay? But this happens where most of the mutant population is depowered by the Scarlet Witch, and then this one child, Hope Summers, was born, the first mutant born since M-Day. Well, it turns out that this kid is the reason Bishop is going back in time in the first place. This kid would end up taking millions of lives in the 6-second war. So Bishop thinks the only way to save his future is to travel back in time and take out Hope Summers as a child, but he fails at taking out Hope, but he does take down Cable, creating this new future where Cable is remembered as a hero for protecting the child, and Bishop was actually remembered as the villain. So he was the villain in his own story, and he didn't even know it. Number 2, Kronos. If you do the crime, you're doing the time. But if you have enough time, you can plan said crime out in detail, and then maybe you just won't get caught next time. David Clinton first entered DC Comics with the Atom issue 3. He's mainly a villain for Ray Palmer, aka the Atom. Now, he was a criminal his entire life, and finally, when he was arrested, he was thrown in the slammer, where he had time to think about everything that he's done, all the reasons why he got caught, why his plans didn't work. But maybe he had a bit too much time. He reflected on his past crimes and what he would have done differently if he had planned it better, and then he used his skills and obsessions with timepieces to work non-stop in the prison workshop, where he learned about clocks, time, the mechanisms within. He learned about everything. So when his sentence was finally up, he was released and then became a time-traveling villain. He used all these time-inspired weapons, like an exploding hourglass, a wristwatch with blades instead of hands, and a device that could slow time down. Going by the new name Kronos, in the DC animated universe, Kronos used these devices to go back in time and steal rare relics from the past. At one point, he actually tried stealing a utility belt from the Justice League's watchtower, but when he was interrupted, he made a break for it through the time vortex, and Green Lantern, Batman, and Wonder Woman followed him back. Not this time, Kronos. Literally, not this time. Maybe the next one. And finally, number 1, Kang. Kang the Conqueror. As Loki gets closer to wrapping up, we're starting to see some higher powers at play here. The Time Lords were just androids. Loki was banished to a realm full of other Lokis. We're not really sure who's calling the shots yet, but signs are pointing to Kang. Jonathan Majors is already set to play the time-traveling villain in the next Ant-Man film, so let's do a quick refresh on him. Kang the Conqueror, aka Nathaniel Richards, made his first appearance in Avengers issue 8 back in 1964. Kang has seen many centuries. He can travel through time, and his futuristic suit of armor is built with weapons that can take on any superhero from any timeline that he chooses. He's super powerful, and it sure helps when he travels with armies. That often does a trick. So he discovered time travel tech from the 31st century developed by Dr. Doom, and being a descendant of Reed Richards with that brain power, he figured out a way to make it work to his advantage. He traveled back in time initially to become Pharaoh Ramatut, but once he returned to his 31st century, it was now just a wasteland. So he figured, okay, now I'm going to go all the way back and just rule Earth to prevent said destruction from happening. I feel like Kang is one episode away. We're so close. I can feel it in my soul.